It's an interesting example of a number of different things. Number one is the stupidity of people, because people are still trying to drive their cars up and down the road, and it's not a very good idea unless you have like
No.
a Land Rover or a Range Rover or some kind of big S maybe SUV or something. Might get up and down the road, but it's far too dangerous for vehicles. It's also flooding because of government plans. The government say you can't protect the village, which is just stupid. You said you can't change the nature by building walls to stop the water coming.
Mm.
And the result is that there's now water everywhere. So people creating problems for people. Um, but there's two roads out of the village. So one of the roads you can't take, but there's another road, so it's not so bad. But
Mm.
um, I feel sorry for the people who live on this side of the road. It's okay. On that side of the road, well, a lot of the houses are underwater right now, um, and they have to get the water pumped out of the houses. So it's pretty rough for them. It's not a good situation. But normally this happens only in spring
Mm.
when the snow melts on the mountains and all the
Mm.
water
Mm.
comes down. It doesn't usually happen at this time of year. So so that's unusual. But in the summer we didn't get a lot of rain. So now
Mm.
all the rain from summer is falling now. So so there's water basically everywhere. But it's it's interesting that the climate changes all over the planet right now. But when the weather is warm and it's you can't really complain. You can go outside and enjoy the sunshine. But where are we now? So we're in October. It's autumn, and the next 8 weeks the temperature is just going to go straight down. By the end of November, it's always in the minus temperatures, right? There's a lot of problems with, I think, people playing with the man playing with the climate. I mean, it's strange. On one side, we live on a planet flying through the universe, and so there's going to be a lot of solar flares and radiation and a lot of crazy
Mm.
things going on. And on the other side, um, we're like putting up windmills everywhere to collect the wind, and that changes how the wind moves across the land. And anytime you play with how things naturally occur, there's going to be some kind of reaction, some kind of problem. So I think that a lot of the problems we bring on ourselves, and there's a lot of focus on climate change, but from my personal perspective, 90% of it is bullshit. There's 10% which is it's very practical to be healthy and to live in a clean environment and to not make a mess. It's sensible and practical. But there's 90% which is like, well, I didn't make the mess. It's not me. It's a result of whatever people are doing or industry or things that people don't see. You know, uh, military aircraft flying around that creates a lot of pollution in the air. Golf courses use a lot of chemicals that creates pollution in the water. There's a lot of things everywhere that mess with the environment, and I think that we have an overly crazy focus on trying to protect things because yeah, we need to make sure we have environment and forests and trees and animals and all those things, but the way that man builds things is that he destroys things.
Mm.
That's the way that man builds. I mean, where do all the parts from a computer come from? You know, these huge mines in North Africa that
mm,
that that mine all these minerals that are necessary to build the microchips. That's a very dirty process. Where do the batteries for cars and other machines come from? And then what do we do with them when we're finished with them? It's not a very clean process. Um, Windmills are not recyclable. That's not very practical. Um, and yet we have things like hydropower and solar power, which seem to be very um, sensible ways to go. Scotland was powered. We had, I think, one or two nuclear power stations, but most of Scotland was powered by hydroelectric.
mm.
The water goes down the hill and you collect the energy from the water going down the hill. It's not rocket science. It's quite a practical way to generate energy. So and coal is now 99% clean. It wasn't in the past, but technology advances and now it's pretty clean. So there's no reason not to have coal power stations. They don't really produce any pollution, and a lot of materials can be used again or used in other products. Here's an interesting story from this week. The company Lego, the toy of the century, one of the biggest. I don't know if it's one of the. It's not. Is it a big company? It's a famous company, and it's definitely a huge industry. They have stopped using recycled plastic in their products. All right. Now, obviously, you'll be able to find some examples where plastic is reused, but in the main, they've stopped using it. And it's a rather obvious reason why. The question is like, why? And the answer is that recycled plastic is a lower quality than originally produced plastic. And the company Lego prides itself on producing perfect products. The Lego product is perfect. If anything is, if there's like a tiny little problem, they don't go down that road, right? It's every product, every piece of Lego, everything that they produce has to be absolutely perfect. Now, recycled plastic is not as good as the original plastic. It's a lower quality. And Lego were unable to produce a quality product using recycled plastic. That's very, very interesting, because this idea that you can recycle everything is actually not true. It's not true. You can't recycle everything. You can recycle some things, and those some things will only have a lower quality than the original. So there's a degradation, a degrading, a sort of downward spiral of quality when you recycle things. So recycling it slows down the process. It doesn't stop it. It only slows it down. Because in the end, your product is going to be useless anyway. So it's really, really interesting, this idea that you can recycle everything. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. And if you want quality, it can't be done. Can't be done, because the quality will just go down and down and down. And it's really interesting, I think, because I'd not thought about this before. I'd not thought about it, but it's logical. It's logical. The recycled product's not going to be as good. No matter what you do, it's not going to be as good because you don't have the same quality of material. And so I think a lot of companies will come to the same realization that if they want to produce quality, they won't be able to do it with recycled products. Although it will be fine for, it's okay for the packaging, the box. It's okay to make the box out of some kind of recycled product, but the actual product itself can't be done like that. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a universal truth, right? It's true in
Yeah.
everything, across, across all areas of everything. It's true. And it's interesting for me because it's something I hadn't thought about too much before. But it's logical if you're looking for quality that you've got to look for original materials for the quality.
Mm.
That you will be able to produce something from recycled materials, but it won't be as good quality.
Mm.
And if quality is your focus, then you 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 can't use everything that's recycled in the long term. You can't do it. It's just absolutely
Yeah.
impossible. You've got to have some element of original material there, and it's it's not good to have. It's definitely not good to have waste products that's not usable. Um, but there's such a strong focus on um, recycle, reuse,
Mm.
repeat the same things again and again and again. That and there's that the triangle of recycle, reuse, and we don't have to we don't have to consume the resources of the planet. But it doesn't actually work like that because if society is going to progress, you need some level of quality in everything. You need good quality. And if you only use recycled materials, your quality is going to go down over time. And so it's something that I don't think the public, the average person understands. I don't think the average person understands that. I think it's only if you're working in industry. It's only if you're working in business. It's only if you're working in production that you really get an idea of how important quality is in products. And maybe if you use some recycled materials, maybe some things will be cheaper. Yeah, it'll be cheaper, but it won't be as good.
Mm.
You can buy a computer from recycled parts and it will function, but it won't function as good as the newest computer with the newest graphics cards and the newest processors. It just won't be so good. So at this moment in time, governments and their subsidiaries are regulating environments very strongly, and they're dictating to companies that you must use, 30% this material, 40% this material, have only this level of waste. The basis of it is good. It's right. We don't want to destroy the rainforests, and that, it's sensible,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of other related problems around that. I don't want to say that European companies are bad because I don't believe that. But when you have European companies going to South America and buying up areas of deforested land for either grazing animals or replanting other, say, non-natural products there, you don't want that process to continue. You want to have a balance, especially for the local populations that are there. But on the other side of things, that it's like Brazilian rainforest belongs to the Brazilian government, really, right? And you can't deforest the Brazilian rainforest without the government being involved. So
Yeah.
it's it's the government destroying their own country for profit, really, at the end
Yeah.
of the day as well. And so all of those issues matter, and we're just doing the same thing in South America that we did in Europe. Europe was,
Mm.
I don't know, 50%, 60% forest at one point in time, and now it varies from 5% to 50%, depending upon which country you live in. So we've deforested a lot of the land for a lot of different reasons. And it's hard to see into the future. And what about all the forest fires, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
something that's a problem which has emerged over the last 2 years. Huge, massive forest fires across Europe and North America, burning down large areas of forest which was once, um, protected, and now it's not because it's all been burned
Mm.
to the ground. Um, and then possibly the forest fires producing more so-called pollution than anything else that's going on. So nature remains the most powerful force in the world, and should be respected. But it becomes increasingly difficult for businesses to function when governments are regulating certain areas of industry. I'm a great believer in the fact that innately people are essentially good, and that companies will in the long term be able to regulate themselves in terms, and because people will vote with their dollars, right? They will buy products from companies that they respect, that are helping the environment, and it's never good publicity for a company when there's negative information in the press about pollution or anything else in that respect. So what was I reading about recently? That a lot of companies were moving, a lot of film production companies were moving out of Hollywood because the local regulation, which is it's not a central government regulation, it's a local government regulation, but local government is regulating how many people from how many different ethnic groups should be employed in the production company.
Mm.
And as a result, the production company can't employ the people they want to work in the companies. They have to employ people from a certain, it has to be a certain number of, I don't know, Hispanic or Chinese, or I don't know, maybe some other, I'm not sure how the groups are categorized. Some sexually orientated community or something like that, right? That X many people from X group must be employed within the company. Oh, this is true of, I was reading about, you can't be nominated, your film can't be nominated for the Oscars if you don't comply with all the local government employment regulations about minorities. So if you make a great film, it can't be nominated for an Oscar unless you have a certain level of people from each community working on the film. It's actually a rule that's been created there. And as a result, a lot of great films don't get nominated for Oscars, and a lot of companies are leaving that region because of they're regulated out of business, because although it seems practical from the outside, if you don't work in the industry, you don't really understand what's going on. And it just makes things complicated when you can't just employ the best person for the job, right? When your work ratio has to be 50% male, 50% female, that's not going to work very well if you are running a NASCAR company. All right, there's going to be more men with those skills than women, right? And it's not going to work well if you're beauty product market. There's a female market, right? Beauty products. If you have to employ 50% men, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work well.